to another episode of In Swine Versation, Cultivating Success in Swine Farming, a conversation with Jimmy Smith, General Manager of NG Purvis Farms. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, and good to meet you, Jim.
You too. I appreciate you joining us on the program today. Let's get right into the rich culture of NG Purvis Farms.
Okay.
What sets you apart and makes this a driving force in the swine industry?
What's really unique about Purvis Farms is the fact that it's a family-owned business started in the 70s by some of the Purvis family, and it has maintained its stature as a family-owned business, which is very important to the people that work in the company. It's a family environment. It's a culture that people really enjoy working in, and that's really what makes it different than what mainly is around us in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, because you guys have stayed kind of more of an independent farm rather than the consolidation
That's
model,
correct.
which makes
Yeah.
people feel, people wake up and feel like part of the company. And
Yeah. They feel more involved. They feel more part of what's going on, and they enjoy that.
and what about your background, Jimmy? Where did you begin?
I started in commercial swine production in 1990 for what was at that time Murphy Farms, owned by Wendell Murphy, and that company went through several changes throughout the years, and then I guess it was around year 2000 it was purchased by Smithfield Foods, and I worked with that group until May of 2011. And then after that, I left the pig industry for a short period of time and then kind of got called back into it. So I ended up in Russia for a period of time. And that was a very unique and rewarding experience working with pigs over there. And it was one of the most joyful things I've ever done in my life. That was a different culture, different opportunity to see a part of the world that many will never be able to see. I mean, it's a closed country and it's invitation only. But we did some great things over there. I had a 3-year contract, and I would have stayed on, but my wife, she was ready to come back home, so we came back. But it was a great 3 years. I mean, it was hectic and crazy, and some of it I will never understand or be able to explain because it's a different culture. But it was an amazing time. And then I worked with a ventilation company for a period of time, and then I find my way back into the pig business yet once again. I got a passion for it. I love doing it, and I just like learning new things. Period around the subject of agriculture. So I've always tried to stay close to something in that field.
before we continue on, the number one thing in Russia, Jimmy, I know you exuded your love for Russia. What was the number one thing that the memory?
I guess it's the people. It was Russia was going through a big change as far as their development of people and just the social structure. And people that had nothing, they wanted you to have whatever they had. And if you ever said you needed something, they'd make sure you got it. And if you gave them a gift, you got it back tenfold. So, people are people around the world, but those were some of the best people I've ever been around as far as charismatic. My wife was there, very difficult for her to be in a foreign country, but they did everything they could to make her feel, welcome and happy and complacent while we were there. I've just never been treated that way by people anywhere. They were a great group of people.
And when we talk about NG Purvis as a family-owned production company, employee development, how do you see employee development? Do you see it as like an art to develop and support employees to victory, or what's your take, Jimmy?
Well, what I know, everybody wants to be successful. I think everybody likes to win. But there's that handful of people in every organization that they love to win. They always want to be on top. And you can see it in their eyes when you talk to them, if they've got passion. And if there's a sparkle there, all you got to do is kind of fuel that fire. And those people that want to win, you help teach them and guide them throughout their career. I mean, they're going to be some of the greatest winners you've ever seen. And just watching people grow is really what I love about my job and jobs I've had in the past, but just helping people grow and accomplish things and become good at what they do, and just watch that passion for what they do in agriculture grow. And that's the most rewarding thing. But the key is finding those people, and they're not hard to find.
What about continuous improvement? So do you believe, like, what is your philosophy there? Is it just kind of put the work in and see the growth, or are there specific strategies when it comes to your team or just in general?
Yeah. Specific strategy is looking at information. You know, data is very important. You got to be data driven. You look at information, you figure out where you're at, and then you start figuring out what do you want to change first. You know, what's going to propel you faster than anything else. You figure out what these things are, you break them down, and you set goals. I mean, we are constantly making stretch goals. You know, I have in my mind what I want to accomplish, and whatever that is, I stretch it. And when you stretch that goal, when you start making progress and you see yourself heading towards the stretch goal, well, then you've really outdone yourselves. The team's outdone themselves. And getting people to understand why we're doing it, get them to want to help you do it, and get them to be part of it. And that requires a lot of change, you know, sometimes to do that. But we're constantly looking at our key process indicators, looking at what they are. Are they industry leading numbers? And if not, let's figure out how to stretch them, and let's move forward. And we've done a lot of that. I've been with this company. June will be 2 years, and we have stretched a lot of goals, and we've accomplished a lot. And I think everybody feels like they have, you know, conquered some major milestones.
What's one of the goals that you've stretched?
It Well, number one is to breeds per year. You know, getting your litters per sow per year up. You wean per litter, farrowing rate, uh, labor cost. I mean, all those things that are fundamental to, you know, being competitive, but just changing from where they were at, creating goals to get us where we need to be.
What about leading change as the industry changes, things continue to change? What does that mean to you, and how do you create and lead change within the farm?
Okay, I think in general, most people do not love change. People are resistant to it, but when you have to make change, for one, I think people respond to it. When the change needs to be made, you can tell people what we need to do, but getting out there with them, you know, working with them, leading that change, showing them to change, because you can tell people and they forget. You show people and they will remember. And then two, when you're out there working with them, going through that change, you get to explain everything about the change, why we're doing it, why it's needed. And as you're doing that, you're getting involvement from the people themselves. And many managers make the mistake of trying to create change, and they don't really listen to the people closer to the process. And sometimes you'll get, you know, pushback from people that just don't want to implement the change. But along the way, after pushing back, you just continue to explain why we're doing it, why it's important, and how it's going to get us to the new level of production. And along the way, you'll find out sometimes there is a better way if you take time to listen to your people. And if you just take time to listen to them, it means a lot. And change will go faster when you've took time to do that. You work to make it their idea.
So take the time to listen and engage, which kind of brings me to the leadership perspective. What kind of leader are you, Jimmy? And what about your visionary approach to communicating the farm's overachieving goals?
Well, my approach is to involve everybody. I want everybody to feel like they're contributing. I want them to know what it is that's expected of them. I want to measure progress, whether it be mine, theirs, or whomever. And along the way, you recognize the successes and you reward people. I mean, as simple as in a meeting, you know, doing certificates of, you know, who had the best category, and regardless of the KPI, but just recognizing people's achievements. You know, get them to want it, get them to understand that it can be done. And but you got to remind people of the wins. We get caught up in daily work, and you got your mind set on frustration sometimes, but you've got to take time to celebrate those wins. And you do that, that inspires people. It really does. Everybody wants some type of feedback of how they're doing. And once people start winning, you've got less of the negative to talk about. I mean, people they're focused. Sometimes they get a step ahead of you because they're on fire to really, be successful.
Do you guys have a whiteboard, regular meetings? What's the internal approach?
There's a lot of email data that goes around, a lot of different measurements. Monthly, we do the managers meetings and we go over where we're at. We in relationship to what the goals were, how we're doing with our budget, just a lot of different measurements. So production can be measured a lot of different ways, and other than just your genetic software just provided or whatever. But I try to show them different ways to measure production and look at it. And as you're doing that, they learn different ways too of how to formulate production, how to plan for things, because everything won't be in a just a production report that's generated generically. But there's just so many different things that you can create and tools to get people involved and understand production, because that's an area that many managers in my position fail to do, is try to educate people along the way, give them the tools. I mean, just have them be able to calculate upside down production, because most of them don't know. They're put into a role. They're given maybe the parameters. These are the numbers you need to achieve, but they don't know how those numbers were derived. Is the target right for this farm? Do you have enough gestation crates to hit this breed target, and so on and so forth? But getting people to understand all the things around it, it's growth, and you got to take time to do that, because they don't get it the first time around, but when they do, they've got it.
So you stick with it and make it a good environment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, as general manager, what's a day in the life of Jimmy Smith?
Well, a day in the life of Jimmy Smith when I go to work, and I guess it's anywhere you work in live production, is when you wake up, there's probably an unexpected challenge around the corner. If not today, tomorrow. And each day you get up, you have to wake up with a positive attitude that today I will not be conquered. I will not be conquered by anything, because if you allow things to conquer you, things will come at you, and you'll throw your hands up and just be done. But I start each day with, I will not be conquered. I work very hard in every organization to find a person or a group of people that start their day with the same attitude. And when you do have things come at you unexpectedly, having a team that feel that way, there's nothing you can't work through. You got to have people that can think on their feet, and want to. I mean, they want to. Again, it goes back to wanting to win. And when you got people like that on your side, I mean, there's things that could be devastating, but most things that come at the industry or you as a pig producer, uh, you got the right team, you can work your way through it.
What do you love most about being in the pork industry?
I've always believed that anyone involved in food production is a noble person, and I tell people along the way sometimes they got doubts about the career choice, and I do remind them. I mean, there's nothing no more noble in the world than producing food. And if you believe that with all your heart, you're going to love your job.
Now, is there something in the industry, Jimmy, that's changed, or a trend that's helped your operation through process or technology?
There's been a lot of changes in the last 34 years, I guess, but the one that has always stood out in my mind that I enjoyed being part of and watching it really evolve was artificial insemination. Back in the early 90s, we started off with traditional or conventional, or whatever you like to call it, AI. And I was involved in that early on. And then many years later, the thing with post-cervical artificial insemination came about. And that, I think, has been as big a game changer as the original AI procedure was. And PCAI has helped companies in so many ways. It's helped just reduce staff needs, boar needs. Just the process itself has been simplified so much, and anybody that's not doing that needs to learn how to do it. And but that to me, that stands out as the most interesting thing that's took place in the world of pig production.
So AI, and then what about what's happening now in the industry? Lots of market changes and things like that. Jimmy, any other notes or feedback on what's happening?
Well, if you're speaking of the market most recently, I think that's an iceberg that is bigger than anybody realized. It sure caught everybody I've talked to off guard, and we're starting to work through that now and get past it. But the last 18 months has been a trying time for people in agriculture, and those that stayed in it. That says a lot about who they are. They're in it. They're in it for the long haul. But it's been a difficult period of time, without a doubt. I don't think nobody expected it, and I don't think nobody wants to see that type of hardship again.
So with what we've been through, let's look to the future of pork. How do we grow the landscape of the industry? And what is the growing culture for future generations?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't know that I have a good answer to it. If you look at what's changed in the last 30 years in pig production and all the triumphs that have been made, but also the battles that have been fought, it's just hard to say, another 2 to 3 decades, what it'll look like. It could go either forward with technology or it could go backwards. It could go back to where we started in the 70s. Even maybe before the 70s, it could go either way, because there's many people trying to stop the forward movement as there is working to take it forward. All I can say is that people just going to be in agriculture in general, whether it be pig production or not, they will have to be flexible people. There's going to be a lot of change, I think, as always, and you're going to have to be more flexible than ever, I think, moving forward. The world's changing. People's demands are changing. And which way it's going to go, I don't think anybody knows. I really don't.
Well, Jimmy Smith, we really appreciate you joining us today.
I've enjoyed it, and I hope the people that out there that are thinking about joining the pig industry world or starting a pig career will really give it a close look, because it is this very rewarding field of work. It really is.
It's rewarding, and we continue to feed the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.